Okay, so you guys have sent in some really, really interesting questions lately. Like, stuff that I think we all kind of wonder about. Like, why does money seem so important these days? And why don't I get the same kick out of video games as I used to? What is it about those mobile games, right? Always on our phones. Oh, and you had that question about WeGovy too. And on the surface, these might seem like totally different things. But you know what? As we get into this, I think you'll see they're actually connected in some pretty fundamental ways, like how we behave, what motivates us, how society is kind of changing. So that's what this deep dive is all about, exploring these things, figuring out what's really going on, and hopefully giving you some of those aha moments.
Yeah, for sure. The questions you sent in, they really do get to the heart of how we experience the world now,
Mhm.
our relationship with money, how we entertain ourselves, even the choices we make about our health. It's fascinating stuff. And, as we go through this, think about your own experiences and the stuff you've already read. It'll make it that much more interesting.
Totally. Okay, so let's jump right in. First up, this whole money thing. In your initial thoughts, you said it feels like money has become a bigger deal than ever. And based on the articles you send over, what are some of the biggest reasons for that?
Well, based on those articles, I think a big part of it is just the economic reality right now. Everything's getting more expensive, there's inflation, things feel kind of unstable, so naturally we worry about money more. When it's a struggle to cover the basics, your focus shifts. Makes sense.
Makes total sense. You see it everywhere, right? In the news, even when you're just like buying groceries. But it's not just about paying the bills, is it? Because then there's the whole online thing.
Right. You bring up a good point.
Yeah.
Social media definitely plays a role. Instagram, TikTok, all those platforms. It's like a constant stream of luxury and wealth,
Right.
right? And it's not always real either. But seeing it all the time, it can make you want that lifestyle, even if it's not realistic. It's almost like we're all chasing this idealized image.
Yeah, it's hard not to compare, even if we know it's not the whole picture. And then, of course, there's advertising, which you mentioned too. Like, it's everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. You're constantly bombarded with ads for the latest gadgets, the newest clothes, and the message is always the same. You need this stuff to be happy, to be successful. So it reinforces this idea that material things are super important.
Right. And then at work, it feels like your salary becomes this measure of like how well you're doing, as if making more money equals being more successful in your career.
Yeah, and that's a big part of today's work culture, isn't it? It's so competitive. You're constantly striving for that next promotion, that bigger paycheck. So yeah, your career goals and your desire for financial success, they get kind of intertwined. It's like they're measuring your worth.
So it's not just about the stuff itself, but what it represents, like achievement, security in a world that can feel really uncertain, right?
Yeah, totally.
Mm.
It goes deeper than just having things. It's that sense of control, that feeling of safety that money can bring, especially when things around you feel unpredictable. And that's a powerful motivator.
Absolutely. So we've got economic pressures, social pressures, the whole consumer culture pushing us, and then this basic human need for security, like you said. But it's important to keep it all in perspective.
Exactly. Financial goals are important, but they shouldn't be everything, right? It's got to be about finding that balance, like your sources were saying. Don't let the pursuit of money take over your life and make you miss out on other things.
For sure. Okay, so let's move on to something completely different. Video games. You mentioned feeling like they're not as fun as they used to be. A lot of people feel that way. And your research actually had some interesting insights on this, like why the excitement fades.
Well, one of the big things they talk about is, what's it called? Dopamine desensitization. Basically, dopamine is this like feel-good chemical in your brain, right? And when you do something pleasurable, like play a game, your brain releases it. But if you game a lot all the time, your brain actually starts to get used to it. So you need more and more stimulation to get that same feeling of reward.
So like you build up a tolerance, like with, I don't know, caffeine or something.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Another thing your sources mentioned is that a lot of games, even new ones, they kind of use the same mechanics over and over. You've seen it all before, even if the graphics are better or whatever. It gets predictable.
Yeah, it's like, oh, another open world. Time to collect 50 of this thing. It can get a little repetitive.
Exactly. And as you play more games, your expectations change too, right? You experience amazing stories, incredible graphics. So newer games that aren't as good, well, they just don't impress you as much anymore.
That makes sense. I remember being blown away by certain games years ago. Now, even with like super realistic graphics, it's not the same. But maybe it's not just the games themselves. Like maybe your interests are just different now.
It's definitely a mix of things. But yeah, as you grow older, your interests change, your priorities shift, It's natural. So maybe gaming just isn't as central to your life as it used to be.
So it's not that games have gotten worse, but our relationship with them has changed.
Exactly. And, you could also be burned out. If you spend hours and hours playing the same type of game, you're going to get tired of it. It's like anything you overdo.
Makes sense. So for someone feeling this way, is there anything they can do to, like, rekindle that love of gaming? Any tips from your research?
Yeah, actually, taking a break can be a really good idea. Like, just step away for a while. It can help reset things in your brain. Also, trying a new genre, something completely different. That can bring back that sense of discovery. And, playing with friends can make a big difference, too. Sharing the experience can make it more fun.
Right, that social aspect, it definitely adds something. Okay, so let's shift gears again and talk about mobile games. Those things are everywhere, right? What is it about them that makes them so successful? Like, what are the magic ingredients?
Mobile games are really good at understanding what makes us tick, psychologically speaking. And your research pointed out some key things. For one, they're usually super easy to pick up and play. Anyone can do it. But the good ones also have a lot of depth, so you don't get bored too quickly.
Yeah, it's like you can just pull out your phone and play no matter where you are. No need to, like, learn a whole bunch of complicated stuff.
Exactly. And then there are the rewards, like daily bonuses, achievements, that kind of thing. It keeps you coming back for more.
Oh, yeah, those daily login bonuses. I have to admit, I fall for those sometimes.
They're designed to work that way. And then you've got the social aspect, like playing with friends, competing on leaderboards. It creates this sense of community, even if it's just a casual game.
It's funny how competitive those games can get, even if they seem simple at first.
Right. And then there's the whole freemium model.
Yeah.
Download the game for free, but then there are in-app purchases. It's a super effective way to make money.
So you start playing for free, but then you might spend a little bit to get ahead or unlock something cool.
Exactly. And to keep things interesting, they're always adding new content, new challenges, new features. It keeps you engaged.
Keeps it fresh, right? Like there's always something new to do.
Definitely. And then there are those things that, well, they're almost addictive, right? Like leveling up, unlocking things, limited time events. They create this sense of urgency. You don't want to miss out.
Oh yeah, the FOMO is real with those limited time events.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And of course, you can't forget the visual and audio stuff. Good graphics, sound effects, animations. It all makes the experience more immersive, even on a small screen.
So it sounds like mobile games are carefully crafted to keep us hooked, using our own psychology against us almost.
Pretty much. They know how to push our buttons, and it works.
Okay, last but not least, let's talk about WeGovy. It's been getting a lot of attention for helping people manage their weight, but you notice that not that many people seem to be using it. Why is that? What did your research say?
Well, there are a few reasons, actually. One of the big ones is cost. Wegovy is expensive, and a lot of insurance plans don't cover it. So even if it works, it's out of reach for a lot of people.
So it's the money issue again?
Yeah, in
Yeah.
part.
Mhm.
And then there's the fact that it's a prescription drug. So it's not for everyone. You have to meet certain criteria, like your BMI and if you have other health conditions.
It's not something you can just try on a whim.
Right. And like any medication, it has side effects. Nausea, sometimes vomiting, other stuff. And that can be a deal breaker for some people.
Understandably so. No one wants to feel sick, even if it might help them in the long run.
For sure. And then there's this, like, general distrust of weight loss medications. There have been so many fad diets, pills that didn't work, even some that were dangerous. So people are wary.
That makes sense. There's a lot of skepticism out there.
Yeah. And it's important to remember that Wegovy is not a magic bullet. You have to change your lifestyle, too. Diet, exercise, all that stuff. And that can be tough for some people. It requires commitment.
So it's a tool, but you have to put in the work, too.
Absolutely. And lastly, not everyone knows about Wegovy. Some people who might benefit from it might not even be aware it exists. So there's a lack of information out there.
So to sum it up, we've got cost-limited access because it's a prescription drug, potential side effects, the whole history of weight loss scams, the need for lifestyle changes, and just not enough people knowing about it. That's a lot of hurdles.
It is. It's complicated. But, maybe things will change. More education, better insurance coverage, more doctors talking about it.
Yeah,
That could help.
I hope so. Well, this has been a really interesting deep dive. You had some really great questions, and we've covered a lot of ground. Money, video games, mobile games, Wegovy. And what's cool is that it's all connected, right? Like how the economy impacts our lives, how our brains work, how technology influences us.
For sure. And by understanding those connections, you can make better sense of your own choices, your own behavior. It's about being aware of the forces around you.
So think about everything we've talked about today. The pressure to buy things, the way digital entertainment affects our brains, the challenges in healthcare. Where do you see those forces at play in your own life? And how can you use this knowledge to, I don't know, make better decisions, maybe even change your behavior? It's a lot to think about. But that's what this is all about, right?
Food for thought.
Yeah, food for thought. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.